What's good, people? Agent Juice reporting for duty. So, today's video is going to be about how I love theory crafting video games. You know, writing my own video games ideas. As a note before we begin, I've obviously talked about video games before in a past video, but I'm going to start kind of revisiting these subjects and going a little more in depth into them depending on what I'm talking about. So anyway, yes, I love theory crafting. Today's video is actually a picture of one of my video game ideas I want to make. To give you kind of the elevator pitch, the title is Saurah and the Horrid Bug Menace, where we have our protagonist Saurah, as in dinosaur, I'm so clever, and her deal is that she has to save the world or her homeland or something from these horrid mutant bugs. And she does so via mystical dinosaur/elemental powers, right? Anyway, I call this theory crafting, like making video games, I call it theory crafting as opposed to like writing or designing, because I kind of don't really have the resources to actually write or design a video game to just pitch it, unlike when I write for like TV shows or cartoons. So when it comes to, like, for example, the cartoon I'm trying to make a pitch for right now, I can pretty much do everything it takes to make a viable pitch by myself. I can create my own pitch Bible, I can do my own concept art, and I can write my own script. Whether or not the script is good, well, that's going to be determined by the marketplace. But the point is, I can construct what it takes to get myself into an office to, actually pitch the idea. Whereas a video game, one of the key elements you need in order to be taken seriously is some kind of prototype build of the game, which would require me to essentially program a playable something. And I just can't do that. I know that there are like tutorials on how to use like Unity or Unreal. And, I do have the desire to eventually get my hands on some of these programs, but I don't really have the resources or the time to do so yet. So that's going to be something I have to put on the back burner. So in the meantime, I'm just calling it theory crafting because it's just kind of barely a step above writing fan fiction, essentially. The reason why I still do it, though, is because it kind of scratches a different creative itch that I don't get when I write like a normal TV show or a movie or whatever. Because video games and motion picture, of course, encompassing both live action and animation, differ because in motion picture, the golden rule is that you show, don't tell. However, in video games, it is do, don't show. And what I mean by that is that your mechanics that you use in a video game is how you engage the audience. The audience does not care about a fancy cutscene as much as they're really going to care about how well the game plays. This is not to say that cutscenes are all bad, but it is to say that you should not be relying on them in a video game. A good mechanic in a video game can trump a weird plot, much like a good character in motion picture can trump a weird plot. An example I always like to give is, I am willing to bet money that you could create a movie or a show or whatever about watching the paint dry if the character is interesting enough. So, conversely, you can make a video game plot be as outlandish or weird or even unassuming as you want, as long as the mechanics are on point. So, in Saurah and the Horrid Bug Menace, I'm essentially pretty much just stealing from a bunch of things I like in video games. I mean, I have mentioned before in I believe it's the fan fiction video I made where I did the Speedpaint of Wuya, where I said there's an idea that if you steal from one person, you're a hack, but if you steal from many, many sources, you're a genius. So I would like to, do the genius thing and not the hack thing, and just pull from a whole bunch of nonsense. So Saurah and the Horrid Bug Menace is kind of mainly borrowing from three things. The art style and kind of the characterization I want to use is pretty much an emulation of A Hat in Time, if you guys are familiar with that game. Saurah, kind of like Hat Kid, is just this, big-headed, small-bodied, stubby-limbed, cute girl on a fun adventure. The enemy style, the bugs, the Horrid Bug Menace, is actually based on, or I should not say based on, but rather inspired by Body Harvest. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that game. It's an old one. It's from, I want to say, 1996. It was on the Nintendo 64. Basically, you play a soldier from the future who has to kill these horrendous mutant cyborg bugs from destroying the world, and it's quite fun. It's actually probably one of my most favorite enemy designs of any game, despite its age. I would love to see a remake of Body Harvest. I might actually make a Body Harvest video at some point. Anyway, the gameplay of Saurah and the Horrid Bug Menace, I want it to play like Devil May Cry, believe it or not. And I want to make it like Devil May Cry because I love games that are high-octane, low-commitment, super insane beat-em-ups. Now, when you think of a game like, for example, Dark Souls is a high-commitment game. Because if you make a swing, you're stuck with that swing. You got to commit, high commitment. So if it hits, you're good. If it doesn't hit, then, well, you kind of take it up the ass as punishment. Whereas a game like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, it's very low commitment because every strike you can do, you can jump, cancel, double dash, guard, flip, triple, deluxe with a cherry on top into a whole different move. And the game encourages you to be in constant motion and, constantly using different moves. And it basically just keeps the pedal to the metal. And it's very hyperactive, very energetic, very much like a Panic, or if you're one of these amazing, players, you make it like an art form. Man, some of the things I've seen is, oy vey. I cannot remember the dude's name, but I will put a link in the description of the way one of these guys plays Devil May Cry. It's insane. But the point is, I want the gameplay to be very low commitment because I want it to be very high octane and fun and sporadic. Because I feel like that lends itself to the kind of cutesy art style that I'm going to be using. So, the game in of itself, the way Saurah kind of attacks these bug creatures, her big head and her stubby limbs, she doesn't really have a lot of a reach. So, her primary method of melee attack is going to be using the aforementioned mystical dinosaur abilities. And what I mean by that is that she can basically do that Bayonetta summoning thing to summon, like, the limbs of dinosaurs, like, in conjunction with her attacks, her punches, her kicks, her headbutts, her tail whips, and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, like, I would like her, her bread and butter attack, her rebellion, if you will, to be head attacks. Like, she'll headbutt, and, like, she'll do, like, Triceratops skull pops out or something, and she'll do, like, a T-Rex bite. And for her fast attack, I want it to be like punches and kicks, where whenever she does punches and kicks, you'll have like these big old taloned raptor limbs come lashing out super fast and everything. And then for her heavy hits, I would like to do tail whips with like Stegosaurus or Ankylosaurus tails, whipping about in these big arcs that, have a huge wind-up, but it's probably the highest commitment you'll have in her moveset. On top of that, I don't want her to just have these normie dinosaur, attacks, right? I want her to have the crazy elemental stuff on top of it. And Saurah is going to be able to access them. And the four I want her to have access to is fire, ice, lightning, and thunder. And the elemental powers are basically going to be like her projectiles, or maybe they'll be her, like, super big spell powers or something. I would also like for her to have like a devil trigger. I think that would be fun. Maybe like a dino mode where she like goes super berserk and has access to a whole bunch of new moves and whatnot. Twould be fun. For the enemies, the enemy styles, kind of like in Body Harvest, I want them to be varied. Each bug is like this different monster with these different abilities. I love having monster variety, like really good monster variety in a game. And I actually kind of want the game to be, as I like to call, cute gory, which I know sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, but I want the game to have a bit of meat to it. Like I really want the impacts when you're hitting these creatures to feel like you're really tearing them apart. But I don't want to go full on like Doom, Berserker, rip them apart, blood everywhere. But at the same time, I don't want this to be a full on like kids game. I guess you could say I want a T rating. Like, the bugs can bleed green and, make them more beastly in order to not, make it too disturbing when you tear them apart. But I would like to kind of have that blend. Another big thing that I would love, not only in this game, but also whenever I make games in general, I love having good mobility. When I think of good mobility, I tend to think of a blend between the 3D Mario games like the 64s, the Sunshines, the Galaxies, and kind of match it with Assassin's Creed ability to kind of climb on any surface you'd like. Breath of the Wild actually is a really good example of being able to kind of climb wherever you can see. I don't like looking into a skybox and seeing something and not being able to go there. I think that is a cardinal sin as far as video games are concerned. It may or may not be a controversial opinion, but that's just the way I feel, honestly. Because of that, I would love for this game to have it, and I love designing games where you get to have like a huge amount of mobility. I've actually discussed this before in my I Love Video Game video, where I really love verticality, the ability to reach, the ability to jump high, to have the options of like air dashing and whatnot, because the fluidity of mobility is such a freeing experience. I think it is an amazing way to engage with the world beyond just beating the crap out of everything you see. There's something truly magical about really mastering your jumps and your air dashes and your wall runs just right to reach that one place where you're almost not sure the developer is really meant for you to get up there. And you get up there and it feels like you just climbed Everest. It's such an amazing thing. One of the other things I really like designing in games, and of course this doesn't count for Saurah and the Horrid Bug Menace, is create a character. I really love create a character because I feel in a way it's more immersive than a character-driven video game, in that your mechanics in the game, you can kind of tailor them to match the personality of your OC Donut Steel, right? You can behave in a way that you feel this particular character that you had invented would behave. Versus in a character-driven game, the mechanics really have to be more streamlined in order to match the character's personality and make sense. A perfect example is Kratos from God of War. This guy is mean and violent, so of course his moveset is mean and violent. On the other hand, you have Dante from Devil May Cry, who's very slick and stylish, and his moveset reflects that. Now, if you really think about it, the two of them, Kratos and Dante, have kind of similar movesets. They kind of behave the same way. They can kind of jump at the same height. They can do kind of the same launchers into aerial attacks. They have the same dodge mechanics. But if you swap their moveset, it would be weird. I cannot see Kratos moving like Dante or Dante moving like Kratos. However, in like a create a character game, I could totally see your character like mixing and matching from both of their movesets to make something tailored to that particular character. So create a character is fun for that level of versatility, versus character-driven games, I feel the mechanics definitely need to be much more tight. So in the example of Saurah and the Horrid Bug Menace, it would very much be that kind of tight, crisp mechanics I would want to implement in the game, because I feel that would make it good. But I've never made a game before, and that's kind of why I would want to steal from a bunch of different games that I really like, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel. And as long as I steal from a whole bunch of sources, I'm not a hack. Or at least I don't think I am. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for today. Once again, go ahead and hit the like, subscribe if you guys enjoy the content. Ring the bell if you want to stalk this channel. As usual, I always provide the link below to my intro video, which has the link to the Teespring shop. So you can get yourself a nice pretty t-shirt, especially with the holidays coming up, all that good stuff. And let me know what you guys think of the videos, what you guys think of the picture. Am I a good artist? Do I suck? Let me hear it either way. And I hope you guys stick around. Until next time, deuces.